Hello guys, so today we're going to be talking about body mechanics as it pertains to massage therapists. So this is going to go along with your chapter 7 in your Susan Salvo book here. So you can follow along with our outline as we go through and define the questions that we have on the outline here. So first, let's just define body mechanics and what it composes of. So body mechanics is how we use our body to perform activities such as massage manipulations and how we can utilize efficient body posture to make ourselves apply these techniques safely and have longevity to our career. So body mechanics does include many things such as proper stance, lunges, leaning of the body weight, and even being mentally focused. So it includes a lot and then some. So when it comes to massage therapists and body mechanics, the reason we want to have and utilize proper body mechanics is to reduce wear and tear and the risk of injury. So the more common places that most massage therapists might find to incur injury at is usually in the hands and wrists and around the thumbs as well. But some common places that therapists might feel pain are, especially when relation to the level of the height of your table, is either in the low back or in the neck. Now, typically, if you feel discomfort in your low back, that means that you're leaning forward too much. So it's more likely that your table is too low, or you're just not getting a deep enough lunge to apply your force and not have yourself leaning forward as if I was standing here trying to, lean in and create pressure that way. Now, if you're feeling issues in the neck, that means your table's a little too high, your shoulders are shrugging up like this, and that's going to give you a lot of tension there. And also, you might just be muscling when you should just be leaning and relaxing into your client's body here with your weight. Now, other areas where you might feel some pain and discomfort too are usually in around the elbows and the shoulders and maybe in the knees, usually because of proper or improper alignment. So typically if your elbow is splayed out when you're doing a glide like this, well, you're putting excessive force into that elbow when it should be locked and in what we call a closed pack position. The shoulder should be stable as we lean our weight in, and then make sure that our feet are properly aligned so that our knees don't incur any damage or injury. So we talked about body mechanics and how we utilize our body to deliver these forces, but there's a key term when it comes to how massage therapists utilize their equipment. We call that ergonomics. Now, ergonomics is the science of using equipment efficiently for our bodies. So ergonomics would include the height of the table, the height of the stool, and even the shape of the stool, whether we had the saddle stool or even just a nice flat round one like this. So I'm sure you've heard of ergonomics. You probably have several pieces of furniture that claim to be very ergonomically friendly. We've all heard that term before. Now, when it comes to what massage therapists can do to prepare themselves before they give a massage and just prepare them in general for longevity, includes many factors. So some of the go-to things is to obviously take care of yourself. We are in the self-care industry. We are here to provide wellness to our clients, and so therefore we should practice a little bit about what we preach. So get a massage from time to time. Definitely add into your routine stretching and exercising, proper diet and nutrition, proper sleep, make sure you're sleeping well. And then biggest thing before we even step inside the massage room, I highly recommend that you engage in a meditational practice of some sorts. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be you're going to a monk monastery and you're in a retreat and learning how to chant Maharishi, all that and good stuff, whatever. Being able to center yourself, focus your mind, focus your attention, your awareness, and just kind of clear your mind of just clouding thoughts and mental chatter is very beneficial for both you and especially for the client. So we don't want to bring all of the mind chatter into our massage room for our clients, especially, chatter where it's like, oh, I gotta deal with calling the IRS or whatever it may be. I gotta wait for my my bills to pay and this, that, and the other. Leave that at the door and then just be highly attentive and aware for your clients. The more awareness that you have when doing your body work, the better your body work will be. So with that, it brings us into what is mindfulness and what is being centered. Well, being centered or being mindful is that presence and awareness while you're giving a massage. So as we mentioned with the considerations of ergonomics, let's talk a little bit about other features that we need to consider when it comes to ergonomics and providing a comfortable massage for us. And that's one, namely, the space and size of the room. So when it comes to a room, we don't want it too small. Too big isn't going to be an issue because you could do a massage on the beach and just going to have endless amounts of space in the room, so that doesn't matter. But you don't want a room that's too small. Now typically the golden ratio is to have 3 feet extended on each edge of your table. So that gives you enough room, especially on the side of your table. I need less width of a room than I do length of a room, because obviously my table's a lot longer. Now, considering that your table is about a 3 foot by 6, maybe 7 foot table, if you add 6 feet to each dimension of that table, you're going to have roughly a 9 by 12 room. So the minimum size of a room, I would say, is a 9 by 12, but a best would be about a 12 by 12, which is a standard room in a house. Some people's rooms might not even be that big in their own house. But obviously we need just enough room where we can have a table placed roughly in the center and be able to work around it. So when determining the height of our table, it really depends on the type of work you're doing, your height as well, and honestly just preference, right? So when it comes to that table height, first and foremost, we want to understand what kind of work we're doing. So if I'm going to be doing a lot of deep tissue work, then I might need to have a lot more leverage and be able to apply a significant amount of pressure. Not to say that deep tissue is all about the pressure, more it's actually the presence, but in the instance where I do need to apply more pressure, then I want my table to be a lot lower. Now, if I'm doing more Swedish style work, and I need to just glide more, I'd rather have my table a little higher. So even right here, because I do more deep tissue and sports related work, my table's pretty low and already set up for that. If I were to do a little bit more Swedish work, I'm going to probably raise my table up a little bit higher. Another big factor to consider when factoring in the height of your table is the girth of your client, how thick your client is. So if you have a tiny little person, well then I might need to put my table up. Or if I have a really big like football player, I might have to put my table down. So that we're talking about the height of our table, we're obviously saying the height matters in reference to the type of work, and we could say loosely associated to the amount of pressure. So when it comes to delivering our techniques and delivering pressure, there's 2 foot stances that massage therapists typically use. Now you've probably seen me doing some of these foot stances already just in this video, but let's break them down. So the 2 major stances are what we call the lunge position or archer stance, and then the saddle position. So what exactly is going on with our feet? So in the lunge position, we have 1 foot in front of the other. So we have this nice little lunge position. That means we can come into that little lunge like in yoga there. So there's benefits and disadvantages to both. And so before we go ahead, the horse stance is like we're riding on a horse in a saddle. So our feet are equal distance apart, shoulder usually a little bit wider than shoulder distance apart. This is actually, boom, right where my feet are, if you could see them. And this is to kind of just work very locally. So like we said, when do we want to use these certain stances, when and where to use them, right? So when it comes to that archer stance, there's a few general rules for the archer stance. One, for the archer stance, it's to usually apply a good amount of pressure, right? And it's also designed to transition from A to B, because with this stance, I can start here and I can glide out here a lot further, and then I can step in and keep my glide going. So that way I can apply lotion or go from being at the low back here to glide on up to the table, top of the table, and work on the neck and shoulders of my client. With the horse stance, we're working very locally. Essentially, we're working right where our client, or excuse me, right in between the width of our feet. So this is usually good for techniques like such as petrissage, or just applying straight compressions and things like that, because we're just working real locally. I might only be working right here in this window, which is a lot shorter, because you could see with the lunge position, I was able to go comfortably from corner to midway of the table before I even had to take a step to continue, where I'm only working with the horse stance essentially right here, which is about less than half my table. Now, when it comes to the archer stance, the foot position matters. So our front foot is what we call our lead foot. Our back foot is what we call our weight-bearing foot. Now, all of our pressure comes from that weight-bearing foot. I don't need, if you were to see this, so let's say my front foot's going to be here, my lead foot's going to be this right leg, and then I'm going to apply pressure, always using the opposite hand of my lead foot, because if I were to, I basically want to use my weight and fall into my clients to apply my pressure. So this is the way I'm going to fall. Now, if I take that back foot off, I lose weight, because now I'm trying to balance and stabilize. But if that back foot stays stable, I'm able to sink in a lot better. Now, if I take this front leg out, I actually apply more pressure, because I'm really utilizing that fist, utilizing this arm to keep me balanced. So the back leg is where most of your weight is being stored, and where most of your power is going to, most of your pressure is going to come from. And then the front foot is the direction in which you want your hips to be aligned and you want your stroke to go, typically. Such as that. And when it comes to these stances, it all revolves around working with gravity and working with weight transfer. And so our center of gravity is located what we call an inch behind and below the navel. So here's your navel is your belly button, so about an inch behind and below that. Now, depending on your gender, it could be higher or lower. Men typically have a higher center of gravity, while women have a lower center of gravity. But your center of gravity, roughly translated, is located 1 inch behind and below your navel. So with that said, all of our pressure comes from our gravity. By using stances, using our body weight, and using the natural force of gravity to deliver our weight into our clients. I like to associate it that I'm essentially falling into my client, and my client is actually the only thing that's really catching me from falling and hitting the ground. So I'm basically leaning forward, and if I were to fall like that, well, I would fall. But I'd have my client here to be able to absorb my weight. So all I need to do is just lean. We essentially lean to apply our pressure into our clients. And this just makes our work so much easier. As we lean our weight, we're not really muscling and putting too much effort into doing most of these techniques. It's really going to keep longevity to our career. And so when it comes to pressure being applied to our client, there's a few angles in which matter to us when dealing with that pressure. So clearly, the most pressure we're ever going to apply is straight 90-degree angles, right? Straight 90-degree angles. So boom, this is a flat plane. I'm coming in at a perpendicular angle, 90 degrees. We call this perpendicularity. Now, clearly, if I'm at 90 degrees to my working surface, I can't move, right, without actually really using my shoulder muscles to pull that forward, and I don't want to do that. So in order to glide with my pressure, I now have to decrease the angle. And I always want to be behind my stroke when I'm moving and gliding, because I want my weight to essentially push my hand and my body forward. So I change my angle. So the more closer to that 90-degree angle I have, the more pressure I'm going to be delivering to my client. And then of course with the more Swedish, if I have my arm parallel, obviously a whole lot less pressure, but usually a more relaxing based type of technique. So when it comes to body mechanics and ergonomics, it also applies for our client as well. And we have a few things that make our client more comfortable, and we need to consider the positioning of our client for comfort and for practicality of us delivering our massage. So for instance, when it comes to providing massage for a client, we might have, and you should have, at least a bolster, a cylindrical round bolster. This one splits in half, pretty cool, and makes a nice little whole round bolster. So with the bolster, now of course you can have whole body bolster systems. There's tons of bolstering systems out there, and you can have any amount of bolsters. But if we were to just have this one bolster here for our client, we'd want to put it in a few different places, and we'll consider that based off of the position we're putting our client in. So the two main positions that most massage therapists use is the prone and supine position. So the prone position is when our client is laying face down, belly on the table, head in the headrest. And then the supine is where they're laying on their back facing the ceiling. So if my client is laying prone, I want to put this bolster underneath their ankles so that if you were to look at a person and you looked at me from the side and I'm laying flat, well, roughly the rest of my whole body is relatively flat until you get to my feet, which stick out about a good 6 inches. So that's where a 6-inch bolster comes into play to kind of negate the feet from hitting the table and then flaying out like that. I don't want that. It's going to be very uncomfortable. And then if my client is laying face up, I want this bolster underneath their knees, because if I was to lay flat, well, my low back curves, and I don't want to have that curve really messed with when I'm laying down. It's just going to get uncomfortable. So I position the bolster under my knees, which actually rotates my hips forward and kind of evens out that low back curve, that lumbar curve. Now, the other positions that we can put our client in are the seated position. Yes, we might be able to use a seated position on the table itself, but it's mostly going to be done in a massage chair or just a regular chair itself as well. Well, some clients might even prefer a chair. Some clients might not even be able to lay on the table. And so you should always have at least the option to provide a chair massage for your clients in that instance. Now, a modification to the seated and reclined position is the semi-reclined position. So this is really comfortable for many of your clients out there. And that just basically means that we're keeping our client laying flat, usually face up, supine, but at an incline. So kind of like you're sitting up in bed watching your favorite program. We can do this with bolsters, or they do have tables, unlike this table, where the end of it actually lifts up and inclines for them. But I guarantee you the best position that you can put your clients in, which is highly underutilized by many therapists out there, so it really gives you that cutting edge if you do utilize it, is what we call the lateral recumbent position or side-lying position. The side-lying position is very safe and comfortable for almost every client out there, your prenatals, your elderly, and just general health of certain individuals and considerations in special populations out there that you might see in your massage. Now, when it comes to the side-lying position, bolstering is definitely key, and essentially we're just trying to maintain spinal neutrality. So typically, when we lay in that side-lying position, we like a nice pillow to hug, a nice cushion under the ears, under the head, and then something to prop up the leg, the knee of the hip that is pointing towards the sky or towards the ceiling. So lastly, we're just going to look at draping. Now, draping is very important. Draping provides many benefits to our client and to us as professionals. One, it keeps our equipment covered and somewhat protected. Also, it provides warmth for our client, modesty for our client, and it also creates a nice comfort and safe guarded barrier, because our clients usually disrobe and they're already kind of weirded out about that, and so keeping that nice tight drape around your client is that extra assurance of an air of professionalism for you. And it also protects you from liabilities of someone saying they got exposed. So always make sure you have a nice tight drape. Now, most places have their own policies on draping. I'm sure you get taught draping out there wherever you're at. Draping is, obviously required by law, and we have to follow the law in that regards and keep it tight. Get it right, get it tight. But when it comes to draping, we have two types. We have what's called flat and contoured draping. So flat draping is when the sheet is just laying completely flat, almost like a still pond, over the equipment or the client itself. And then contoured draping is more like a rippled pond with little waves in it, like a breeze is blowing through it, and it's all rippled effect. So the contour draping is usually more viable because we don't want to see the outline of our clients' bodies, especially for women's chests or the genitals of a man. Now most times, well, massage, when men are relaxed, things just happen and situations arise that are innocent and just natural phenomenons. So most times guys are usually creeped out or, embarrassed about it. So go ahead and just bunch up the drape there to make sure you can't see the outline or anything like that, and make them feel a little more comfortable. So guys, that's gonna do it for our body mechanics and equipment and ergonomics. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.